Monster Hearts is so much fun. It's dating monsters, dude. It's like Monster Prom, but an RPG.
That sounds awesome. I can't believe that Bunnicula won't fucking accept my prom invite. Dude, can you imagine like a hot,
cracking me up today,
like a bunny girl, like a bunny girl, and she's got like 2 tits, not like 8, like a real bunny would. She's got 2 human tits, but she's a bunny girl, and she's covered in a downy coat, and she's a Dracula.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Alien Familiar RPG podcast. I am Clayton.
I'm Beth.
My name's Kyle Perkins, dude.
I'm KD.
Before we get started, I just want to remind our listeners that you can find show notes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/alienfamiliar, and I am personally on Discord as DM Scorpio number 0660, and I've created a channel for Alien Familiar Media. Today's topic, we are talking about time and causality, time travel, and if we have time, we might even talk a little bit about speculations on nonlinear storytelling. Go.
Jesus. You don't get
did
paid
you
by
say
the word,
zero dicks zero? Because that's what I heard, dude. Fucking nerds.
Who's at the table with us today? Can you introduce yourself?
It's KP, man. It's me, bro.
Did you have vocal cord surgery?
No, this is my real voice. This is how I sound.
Oh, you've been hiding your real voice this whole time. Okay.
Wait,
I wasn't aware.
Are we on the air? Are we podcasting right now?
Oh yeah.
Oh shit. Hey, it's Kyle Perkins. It's me. Hi. Welcome to the podcast. God, I can't wait to talk about time travel. It's so good.
Could you say that you just came back in time right now?
Yeah, something like that. I've seen the future and it sucks.
So something I want to say that is absolutely necessary whenever you're playing a time travel game is you have to have focus. You have to actually have the ability of the players sitting around the table to actually pay attention to what's going on and not kind of stray off into whatever weird thing just comes into their mind at the time.
I feel like this is a pointed attack. I can't imagine why, frankly. But
Wait, what are we talking about?
I mean, I feel like that's really my main point. You need a GM and players who pay intense attention and take extensive notes and review those notes before each session. Therefore, time travel games are impossible.
Why do we do this where we just say 2 words and the podcast just ends? Now we're just done. That's it. Thanks for listening, everybody. That's all you need to know. Don't do time travel. Just don't. You'll end up like old KP here.
Just
an old man.
Burnout, loose man with a million voices
full of
in his
regret.
head.
Would you say you're full of regret?
Yeah.
An old man?
Oh, yeah.
Filled with regret?
Huh? I don't think it's impossible. I think it's just very complex. My real thoughts on time travel. It's a very complex thing, but I think as long as the players are okay giving up some control and letting the DM just hammer things smooth, they can do it. It's possible.
You're definitely going to have to either revise or recreate your social contract with your, with the gaming group for a game like this, because you're definitely going to have to be like, alright, GM, we're gonna give you a lot of creative control here, and you'll have to, go from there. So I think that's sort of a little different than normal, especially if you're used to playing games where it's, as it should be, largely player-centric, you're going to have to hand some of that back over and sort of take more things on the nose.
Mm-hmm. And the Game Master has so much more prep in a time travel game. Even if it's very limited amount of time travel that the player characters have access to, the things that can be done with unfettered time travel, it makes even more than any other game, the infinite possibilities so much more to even wrap your brain around and think about the consequences of the actions that the player characters have made. Because in a typical game, you're just concerned with, okay, the things that they have done, how is that going to impact the future? In a time travel game, if they have traveled to the past, you not only have to think about, okay, how have their actions impacted the future, you have to think about how have their actions impacted the things that have already happened in this game.
There could very well be a lot of retconning. There would be some. I don't know necessarily that it would be, group plays a session, some time travel happens. they go back to the future, and in session 2 of the game, it's the same... Oh, that's actually kind of interesting. That could work. Okay. They do a bunch of things, they go back in time, they change something, they go back to the future, and... and things repeat themselves. Like, it's the same events, but changed by what they do. And so it would be... Every session of your campaign would be the same day, but things are different because of the time they're changing. So as long as, like we talked about in our last podcast episode, you know the world well enough and have time to plan for all the changes the players bring about by time traveling, maybe that's a way to do it. Like, keep it small and limited. 1 day's time in one location. The only complexity comes from what the players change.
There are TV shows and books and movies where time travel is very limited like that. There is some sort of constraint on how far back you can go or the time in which you can travel. Like the movie 12 Monkeys, for some reason people can only travel back to like just this time period around this very particular event that is going to happen at the end of the movie. Another TV series that was on, I saw it on Sci-Fi, so it makes me in the let's see, late 90s, early 2000s. So it makes me
say
think,
7 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say that was like imported from Canada to the United States.
Maybe.
But yeah,
that was a pretty okay show.
Yeah, the main character could, like, he was basically like an anti-terrorist type person, but he could go back in time a maximum of 7 days in order to change the present.
So, like, right after, say, a terror attack or, something, they would be like, okay, we have to gather as much intel as we can and send you back 7 days' time, and you only have a week to stop the event. And then, am I correct in thinking that he would live those 7 days, and then and now there he is?
His character, yes. His character his character would have, the amount of time he had experienced in relation to everybody else just kept expanding by 7 days each time he went back. So his experiences and everything kept growing, but he had all of these memories of events that he had changed so that they never happened. He didn't have any way to travel back into the future. He had to literally live out the rest of that time. And basically they kept the person from the present who was living forward, they basically kept them in isolation while everything else was going on. Because there would have been 2 copies of him running around at any point.
And that's what I don't remember. What happens to the other copy in that show?
They never address it because they kept him sequestered. I don't remember if they addressed it. I know they kept him sequestered so that they didn't have to deal with that.
Interesting. I don't remember that.
So wait, he would solve the crime and then go to his superiors and be like, hey, you maybe know what's up, put me in isolation?
Well, I'm pretty sure the very first thing that would happen is, they'd be chilling. All of a sudden, this dude would appear and be like, hey, I'm here. I jumped back in time to stop this. Here's what's about to happen. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. And I don't remember what would happen to the version of him that was, ignorant of the events. Who's the original? Who's the copy?
Well, the one that came back in time whenever he was living out those regular days, he would be in isolation, sequestered from everyone, but he was hearing all the stuff that was going on. He was learning all of the information so that when he went back in time in 7 days, he would have all that information that he dumped at the very beginning of the time travel.
Man, I've forgotten all about
that. Wow, my mind hurts already.
Yeah, for basically a popcorn show, it went surprisingly deep with
its
with the consistency of what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. There was one interesting tidbit where the whole reason this dude got selected, he was I think he was in the military, he was a soldier, nothing outstanding, he wasn't a fucking Green Beret, I don't believe. He was just maybe a lieutenant in the army. And he got selected for this program because he has an incredibly high pain tolerance.
Oh,
And
yeah, that
the
was...
process of going back 7 days, as they would always say in the opening credit. The process of going back is incredibly painful. And so he's just there like... And then he's back in time, and he's got to fucking stop, Gary, Indiana from being blown up.
Wow, really? Gary, Indiana? Is that the exact noise that he made? Also, Gary, Indiana, I mean, is this a rough place?
We should let it blow up. Is that what you're saying?
I did not say that. I said it's a rough place.
Well, yeah. It was... I'd forgotten about that show.
No offense if you live in Gary, Indiana.
If you live in Gary, Indiana, get out. Get out of there.
Please, do yourself a favor.
I forgot about that show. I think it's actually a pretty decent example. Like, really, like, well put. Like, despite its pulpy, public... Well, not public access, but, like, mainstream TV kind of feeling, it was decent. I would recommend anybody going and checking it out.
So, but that leads into, like, limitations. Like, that show has limitations.
Quantum Leap had the limitation of he could only travel within his own lifetime.
Yeah, and Back to the Future, you needed to go 88 miles per hour. You needed the plutonium, 1.21 gigawatts. Like, there's always a resource there that limits that.
And a lot of times they're like you've got to be careful of like paradoxes. Like you're not allowed to run into yourself. There's a movie called Project Almanac, which no one should ever watch, and I wish I hadn't watched it. But in that movie, whenever you see yourself, you explode. Like you just explode. And it makes absolutely no sense. I mean, it's like time travel doesn't make sense generally. There's no need to find ways to make it even more nonsensical.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about some examples of time travel already, but I want to go over what I believe is probably the most accurate representation of what two player characters who have access to time travel, what conversations between the two of them, what actions between the two of them would take place. And this is taken from the movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. There is a point where Bill and Ted are facing a problem, and they come up with a brilliant solution that every single player character any group of player characters would come up with this solution, and it has problems in it that would happen down the line that I kind of want to talk about. And do we want to read these lines, or do we want to you want me to just say?
I think y'all need to perform these lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I've got performance anxiety.
I don't think that happens.
Hello, this is Kyle Perkins, and I'll be reading for Bill in this audition. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, I want to say it's a real pleasure being here in front of... No, it's Harvey Weinstein! No!
Ooh, topical.
Don't worry, Clayton. I know you're not Harvey Weinstein.
I don't think you have anything to worry about from Harvey Weinstein.
Are you saying I'm not attractive enough?
You're not an attractive young woman. No, you're not.
I'm saying you may...
Y'all haven't seen my tits. They're nice. They're nice. They're nice. Look,
I'm saying the long hair is the closest you get.
So maybe from behind he'd walk up, and I'd turn around and be like, "Can I help you?"
Oh, so it's like a shitty bit in a bad comedy film.
Yeah, but it's just me and Harvey Weinstein hanging out for... I'll just kill him.
Probably a good idea.
There. No, problem solved. Okay, he's dead now. New generation of Hollywood. We're taking over from all these fucks. All right, here we go. Bill and Ted. I'm Bill. You're Ted. If only we could go back to 2 days ago before your dad lost his keys and steal them.
Well, why don't we?
Because we don't have time, dude.
We could do it after the report.
Oh, yeah. Wait, where should we put them?
How about behind this sign?
Okay. Wow! It worked!
Right, so when we're done with the report, we have to remember to do this, or else it won't happen. But it did happen! Wow, it was me who stole my dad's keys.
Oh. Every time travel movie ever, by the way.
I love it so much.
And so why do you think that this is the epitome of PCs going back in time?
Because
if time travel really could happen, you could do that.
Yeah, you
could be like, we're just gonna put this thing here, and then you reach there and it's there, because
player characters always abuse the system. Not every player character does, but one of the player characters will always find a way to abuse the rules and abuse the system. And when they see, oh, well, I can just remember, I'll write it down so that I'll remember to do this after the adventure, and I'll just go and do this thing. There would be no constraint on, like, I have a limited access of time travel. No, if you have unlimited time travel, you're going to be starting to just put whatever you need at the time somewhere where you can reach it.
Right.
You're going to start, like, having a stash of guns, like, right in a place where you can easily get to it and go access them whenever it comes time to fight the big bad. Guns, armor, everything that you need will be right there, because who knows how far into the future your future self is going to be able to get access to these things. If you have access to time travel, time becomes irrelevant.
Yeah, and then you're like, well, why don't we just go back in time and kill the big bad when he's, a kid, or, like, she's just starting out her mage journey, and you're like...
Yeah. Then we run into the the Terminator problem.
So, now I can understand that. I think that, like, suspension of disbelief, like, we were talking about Looper before the recording started, and, like, that is a film that's very much so very entertaining, but... in the moment, but then, like, you stop and you think about it after the film's over, and you're like, wow, that fucking made no sense at all. And, like, I think that's time travel with literally anything.
That's how I feel after all these podcasts. About what I say. I'll say a bunch of shit, and at the end of it, like, that didn't make any sense at all.
So what you're saying is you're a time traveler.
I'm saying that I'm the new Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Wow. I mean, that audition was pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you.
But, you need to, like, suspend the disbelief, and that's true for RPGs, too, in that you just gotta kind of roll with the punches, Like, there's no right way to do time travel, because time travel's bullshit. Mm-hmm. And there's no wrong way to do time travel, because you can literally do endless permutations of time travel. So you kind of just gotta, like, roll with the punches, Like, see what the group wants to do, see what you want to do. I think that's what it boils down to. There's no right way to do it, because you just can't. And you probably shouldn't do it. But, it's fun. Like, it's fun to do time travel.
And if you do it, flexibility is key. Like rolling with the punches, understanding that there are going to be paradoxicals. Paradoxically, there are going to be paradoxicals hanging out, and
that's a band. You got to deal with the paradoxicals.
Yeah. And you got to overlook them, and you got to realize, hey, it's all about having fun. I think that, in my opinion, there's no hard and fast, like, just don't do time travel. But I do think there is a hard, fast rule of don't do time travel in a game that everyone is taking extremely seriously, and, like, just taking extremely seriously. Like, you can't have a DM and players who want a realistic, serious take on maritime law in 1875.
With time travel.
With time travel, you can't.
Right, yeah, or like a hard sci-fi game you shouldn't try to have time travel in.
Well, barring maybe forward time travel.
Yeah, according to current scientific theory, time travel is theoretically possible within Einstein's construct of the space-time continuum. Backwards time travel could happen, but there is, in science, to say that something could happen is not the same as saying that something should happen. The distinction there being, like, there could be life on other planets, because we have evidence that life is on Earth, and we have formulas that we can calculate in the probability that there is life somewhere else in this galaxy. But it is a scientific fallacy to rely on those calculations of probability to say that something is a fact. And in the same way, just because time travel into the past with very heavy constraints is possible doesn't mean that it happens. Just in the same way that it is possible to have elements that exist with 115 protons in it. Those didn't exist until humans had the technology to create them. As far as we know, they did not exist in the universe until humans had the ability to create them. And that's kind of my interpretation of whether or not time travel is possible. Now, in Einstein's theory, travel into the future does happen. In fact, we experience it here on Earth, or rather, our satellites experience it in space, because Earth's satellites have to take into account the fact that time moves slower whenever there's more massive, whenever you're closer to a large mass than whenever you are away from a large mass. And so our satellites have to take that into account in order to be able to continue to function for people on Earth.
Is that why Comedy Central's stupid programs start at like 3:05 and end at 4:57? Because they don't understand?
Probably. Travel into the future is possible, and we are actually experiencing it right now. We are actually traveling into the future right now at the speed of regular time, of what we perceive to be regular time.
I just like to think that we're all chrononauts in this crazy planet called Earth, and you know what a chrononaut would do when they encountered another chrononaut is just they'd suck a stick a little bit. That's all I'm saying, girl. That's all I'm saying. That's my new line. I'm trying that out. Time travel can get you punched very hard in the face and then probably arrested, so be careful.
So quiet. So quiet.
What are you?
A chrononaut!
I like the idea of time travel in RPGs and in fiction in general. You know,
It is pretty fun.
like it's a fun idea to toy around with, and especially in an RPG where like largely you're part of the story. You know, like it's one thing to see on the screen, like in Looper, you're like, oh my god, that's Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. That's Bill fucking Bruce Willis. Bill, who's Bill? Bill and Ted? Bruce Willis's character in the future. That's kind of cool. But like in an RPG, you're like, oh, we're back at, like, those are my parents. Maybe they were adventurers. Like, this is really cool. I'm like seeing my young me, you know, or something. And like, that's so different, you know, like that's so much more fun, in my mind at least. And, you know, but there's other stuff like, we did, I wasn't part of the Harry Potter podcast episode, unfortunately, but like Cursed Child is just so bad because it fixates on time travel. Like the worst part of, and I guess we can transition this into magical time travel, but the worst part of the Harry Potter universe is the fact that time turners exist. Magical time travel is, for me personally, the exception of time travel is fun. Because it's just, it's some shit to deal with, you know? Like, because time travel in a, like, science sense of, like, you know, the phone, like, Bill and Ted's fucking phone box, the phone booth, I guess, you know, or, like, the DeLorean. That's one thing. But, like, you know, having a character that can be, like, I travel back in time, like Doctor Strange, you know, like, I'm gonna go back in time, but I can also see, like, all these infinite possibilities, and I can see every eventuality, and all this other shit. And then all of a sudden it stops being, like, you know, average Joe's back in time to, like, well, now someone's back in time and, like, they're on a mission, you know, or they have, like, these other things they can do. Even the Terminator, like, goes back in time and he doesn't really have a way to get back. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a one-way trip, and, like, sure, he's a robot, I guess, and, like, the first one, he's, like, a robot in 1987?
84.
84. And so, you know, what are you gonna do against a future robot in 84? You know, Kyle Reese found a way. I don't know if I'd be able to find a way. But, yeah, I think magical time, like, time travel is bullshit in fiction, and when it comes to games, it's also bullshit, you know, like, Mage the Awakening. I'll say that, you know, there's some time mechanics in that. We recently did a short Mage game here, and Kyle, your character had time magic.
Mm-hmm. Two player. This was a player versus player game, and two players had access to time magic, and I cannot tell you how much of a headache that gave me, because I am constantly thinking about, okay, you have told me that you have been scrying into the future for months or even years in preparation for this event, and so now I have to internally, with internal logic, explain how and why you have selected the places that you are going to go with this foreknowledge that you know where all of the battles are going to be in this big fight.
And I was not in this game, but I heard all about it at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I avoided doing what Chris did like the plague. Because I, unlike Chris, care about you, Clayton. I'm your friend. I would never hurt you like that. So, all I did was use time magic to look at... Once an event had already happened, and I essentially wanted to spy on a player, I could see the, like, past 5 minutes or something leading up to that event. But, like, I'm shocked but not surprised that he was just like, Clayton, I read the future for my entire prep session. I want to know where all these battles are going to take place, and I'm going to rig them with explosives.
Yeah.
In a 6-person multiplayer game. Oh, God. We should have banned that whole Arcana.
Yeah.
Or at least the future stuff.
I mean, space was pretty bullshit too, but that's
No,
neither here nor
teleportation's
there.
fine. That was fine. That was no problem at all. I never hurt Clayton.
All right, but so like let's
never
talk
heard him.
about a specific incident here, in which you used time against Chris, in which you had just won a fight, and Chris, you know, the tactical, advantageous opportunist that he is, was like, "Well, you're weak. I'm going to drop a bomb on you," and he teleports a bomb in. But you had time arcana, and so you're like, I read 3 seconds into the future, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a bomb coming. Bye. Incredible, you know? Like, how... Like,
Yeah.
that's...
Yeah, Clayton was like, I can't believe you did that. Like, that is so amazing.
But more so, just this as a mechanic, right? I read 3 seconds into the future.
And the game tries to be nice. The game tries to tell you you can only use this precognition skill to see, like, general outcomes a few seconds ahead. You know, like, for example, I could ask the DM, what would happen if I walk up to the biggest guy in the bar and slug him? And essentially the DM has a chance to be like, well, okay, the biggest guy in the bar, his name's actually Andy Sue, and he's actually a retired circus performer, and he just wants to be left alone, and he's real sensitive, and I know that if he were punched, he would start crying, but my player might not know that, so I'll use this opportunity to characterize Andy Sue. He would start crying. Oh, okay, didn't expect that. All right, so then now we play the scene out, and I know that this guy's a big softie. Like it's
Yeah, that's totally
They tried to
different.
make it more like an interesting tool for just getting vague information about an outcome, not like I will have every single moment of the big bad's battle plan figured out ahead of time, and I'll be there at every step of the way.
Well, I think that on one hand that says that mage kind of breaks down a little bit when it comes to like PvP. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it could or it could work with like restrictions. Maybe, I don't know. But you're right. I think that like a lot of those time skills could be fun in a like more traditional cooperative campaign, and then exactly something like that where you read someone at a bar. You know, like using this skill in combat, using any time ability in combat, like. Imagine playing a character if you had maxed out time arcana dots. Like, are you literally like combat was slow to a crawl where you're like, okay, well I see like 5 seconds ahead at all times, so I know what this guy's gonna do constantly. You know, and then like how does that work with turn order? Like, where even are you in the turn order? Are you outside the turn order? Like, oh, you died. No, I don't. I go back in time. Okay. Like,
Yeah, it was even worse in the past. Like with the current rules of how you have to cast spells, you can't do more than one action in a round. Basically, if you wanted to foresee into the next round, then if you wanted to act on that knowledge, you would have to act, you would basically get bonuses on whatever action you're going to take, but then you wouldn't also be able to see what's going to happen in the next round. You would have to make a choice of whether you're going to influence the future or act or next round foresee with the future, see what's going to happen next. In previous edition of World of Darkness, it was possible to have multiple actions that you could do in a round. So you could literally foresee the future in that each round and act on whatever knowledge you had in that same round. And it just became a nightmare of well, you're always going to be 3 steps ahead of the bad guy in combat.
Like, there's a scene, I think I just talked to Kyle about this like a couple weeks ago, but there's a scene in the anime Yu Yu Hakusho, really great 90s anime. Check it out if you're into that sort of thing. I read the manga, but what can I say? I'm just more cultured than you.
Son, you're reading those goddamn backwards titty books.
Don't talk about it, Dad! Anyway, there's a scene where there's a character that's being fought that has, like, he's spoken of having this impenetrable defense, in that he has 2 powers. He can read minds, and he can see a couple seconds into the future. Mm-hmm. And so he's taken down, like, all these people, and people are like, oh, God, like, we can't do anything, because he can read our mind, he knows our plan, and even if we try to hide that, he can see 2 seconds into the future, and he knows what we're going to do. And the main character, Urameshi, is like, well, I'll take him on, and everyone's like, you can't beat him, no one can. He's like, well, I'll give it my old college try, And so...
Is this one of those things where, like, he's too stupid to be predicted?
Well, not exactly.
That's
like,
a trope.
He's literally, like, he walks up to the guy, and the guy's like, sees 3 seconds future, he's like, alright, Urameshi's gonna punch me. He reads his mind, he's like, alright, Urameshi's literally just thinking about punching me. And he's like, God, fuck this guy, like, I got this. And then Urameshi just fucking knocks his ass out. And everyone's like, oh shit, like, how did that happen? Like, what did you do? And Urameshi's just like, well, if he can see into the future, that's fine, he can read my thoughts, that's fine. But, like, if he's not fast enough to do anything about it...
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And then that was literally what just happened. He was just, like, fast enough that even if you could do all those things, like, if your reaction time isn't good enough, Mm-hmm. And so, like, I could see that being a potential counterplay to this sort of thing that is, like, yeah, even if your character sees 3 seconds into the future, if you aren't fast enough to be able to, like, do something about it, that's what it is, But unfortunately, a lot of game systems wouldn't have that as a mechanic because of the way turn orders work, where it's just, like... Everyone has this amount of time to do this thing, and there's no concept of speed. So, like, everyone essentially in a turn order operates at the same speed for most actions. So there's no way to really counter that in that way,
You could work with a time reader who is very slow, because that character would most likely have a pretty bad initiative modifier in whatever system you're using. And so if a super fast, agile, punchy character is going first... And they're like, yeah, I walk up and I punch him. The DM's way of thinking could be like, well, even though the enemy, who is slow, could have read that he's being punched, he just was seriously not fast enough to dodge it. Mm-hmm. And because his spot in the turn order is
so I guess,
shitty.
so in that case, you need to have the time mage character in the turn order somewhere. The issue I was trying to get at earlier is, like, if time travel bullshit gets too weird, like, where do you even put them in the turn order? Like, if they can just literally, like, okay, because then they can just be like, well, I got punched, I rewind time.
Right, and I move so far away that, like, he can't reach me or something, but... I guess in that situation, the slow time reader would also have a pretty bad move speed. And so even if I go back in time and I move really far away and he can't reach me, the punchy person's move speed's probably going to be higher, so they could just walk up and punch him again.
Mm-hmm. But then you're stuck in a loop of, like, well, I keep walking back away.
Well,
like,
that's a trope, like my girlfriend dies. I go back in time to save her. Now she gets mugged and dies a different way. I go back in time and I kill the mugger and I eat his flesh. Okay, now she dies because I turn into a zombie from eating flesh. She's always going to die, Kyle. That's a time travel 101. She's always going to die.
The way that most games deal with that very, very short-term time travel, like either time travel or precognition, is if it's within, like, if you can see just one round in the future, it just gives you a pretty big bonus on, like, your defenses or something like that to represent the fact that you know what's going to happen in the future. And so that kind of reflects, Katie, your point of, well, maybe he does know what's going to happen and he can do something about it, but he's just not fast enough. He's just not tough enough. He can't actually avoid it because if he's getting shot at, the person is just a really good shot. He may know what's going to happen, but he's not faster than a bullet.
Yeah. And I think that's like a fun, like, the only way I can really think of to try to play around this, because other than that,
Other than that, you run into the problem of the Nicolas Cage movie Next, where he could foresee the future, and he can literally dodge anything.
Is that knowing?
That was
No,
next.
That's
No,
next.
it's-
Ah, right.
Was Knowing also a Cage film?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it
God,
also
what the hell?
and it
Yeah.
also involved foreseeing the future.
Yep.
But Knowing was the one about the apocalypse was
Yeah.
coming.
He has a
and
great
that's right.
line in Knowing where he just goes, "Oh, come on!"
Oh, come on. What was
Like,
the
exactly.
what was the Mark Wahlberg Shyamalan film? Was that also called The
The
New?
Happening?
The
The
Happening.
Happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And dude, Mark Wahlberg phones it in so much. He's just
Oh, yeah.
walking around like,
What? No!
it can't be. Oh, hey there, little dear. Where's all the people dead? Wait, they're dead again. Oh no, what? No, oh no. Like, it's carried on the wind. Watch out for the wind. I'm Mark Wahlberg. Ugh, I'm talking about that movie.
No time travel in
Thanks,
that movie,
Kyle.
but, it's
Thanks for
pretty
bringing
bad.
out that piece of shit. I'd like to go back in time.
Time does dilate while you're watching it, so that
You do lose time.
I'd like to go back in time and stop Shyamalan after Signs. Signs should have been his last movie.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Bold talk.
Hey,
I mean, you're not wrong. Like, what was it after Science was like Devil? That was pretty bad.
no, after Signs was The Village.
Yeah.
I actually haven't
And
seen
then Lady
that
in the
one.
Water.
Lady in the Water. Dude, the one dude kept fucking, like, there was a character in that movie, whose one arm was like 4 times bigger than his other arm because he was just sitting there. That's actually pretty relevant, because that's all about prophecy, and somewhat time travel-y. Like, in Lady in the Water, all these characters do stupid shit, like the guy who just pumps iron in one arm, and he has an arm that's like 4 times bigger, it's jacked. His other arm is atrophied and tiny. And it's all about, like, each of those characters ends up having their quirk be extremely beneficial to the prophecy. Like, for some reason, there's, like, a situation where they need a strong one-armed man. I don't know why. I forget, but that really is true. Like, there's someone who, like, can only swim
Backwards.
slowly or something. It's bullshit. It's dumb.
So prophecy in game is a little different than, like, it's related.
Well-
it's tangentially related to time travel, but it's not the same thing.
Do we want to talk about, like, magical glimpses of the future versus... Because we
I
think that's
I
a
think
good time to
that
bring that up.
prophecy is within the sphere of seeing the future and doing something and trying to do something to change the future. I think that fits very well into time travel.
But is it easier to deal with than time travel? Like, merely giving your players a prophecy?
Well, with prophecies, you run into the problem of whether or not the future is set. Does
free will exist?
Does free will exist? Is there any future? Like, is there no fate but what we make, or is fate what is going to happen and you can't change that?
I think it's fun to give players a prophecy, particularly like a negative one, to have them try to fight against it. Because, like, I mean, for me personally, like, there's no funner story, more fun storyline than, Soothsayer says, "You'll be the one to end the world," and you're like, "I don't think so, old man," and then you kick the old man down a hill and don't end the world, because partly too, it's also easier to run, like, because it's also like prophecies are a challenge to players, and you don't, and when you challenge players as a GM, like, players aren't going to just be like, okay, well, I guess we end the world, like. Even if you have it set in stone, they're going to try to fight against it anyway. And so you're creating more work for yourself in that case, because then you have to be like, all right, these players are going to try some wacky shit to try to, like, crazy stuff to make sure this doesn't happen. How the hell do I co-op that into being like, well, all those things you did to avoid it is how it happened, It's so much extra work for you as a GM, just don't even do it, But, like, you motivate the players, though, to follow the storyline and be like, we're not going to end the world. Or something along those lines, if you're just like, well, here's a prophecy to motivate you.
Yeah.
So, like, that's something I'd rather do than be like, here's a prophecy. I'm now going to have to respond to all your efforts to not have this happen, to make it happen. Like, at some point, you start running out of tools.
Yeah, you have to be vague with prophecies, and you have to be able to, like, with prophecies in specific, like, you can't just say, you guys are going to end the world. It's like, when the black bear is underneath
The seventh sun.
Yeah.
Hey,
Woe upon the world.
You're right.
When all the corn in the field has popped into Orville Redenbacher's kernels, you know that the big bear in the sky will come down and slash prices. That's the prophecy I heard when I was born.
That was your personal prophecy?
Yeah.
Has he slashed prices yet?
Well, I am about to go work at Big Lots, and
Okay.
as a sticker boy, they call them sticker boys. I get to stick all the this food's about to expire stickers on things.
And so you are slashing prices. You're the bear slashing prices.
Yeah. A lot of corn chips sold there too, so that's the corn part of the prophecy.
Wow, that's incredible. Are you Ash from Evil Dead? Where's your chainsaw arm?
I got chainsaw dick, actually.
Oh, that's so
you walked into that one.
All right, okay. It's one of those as depicted on screens, not as accurate as reality sort of things.
It's accurate, ladies.
I think with you, anyone just walking in the world is capable of walking into a dick joke at any moment.
You know, from The Matrix, you got that Mouse, the operator, who's just like, hey, Neo, did you like that lady in the red? Did you like her? I'm Mouse. That's my brain's always thinking about it.
You know how when you watched Matrix as a kid, ladies and gentlemen, and you're like, wow, I really liked Trinity. I really liked Neo. Kyle looked at that and was like, I'm Mouse. I really like
my
Mouse.
favorite was Morpheus. That was a joke. I was being jocular.
Ah, so you actually enjoyed The Wise Men.
The Wise Mentor. That's me.
Okay.
That's me. Okay, back to magic. We're talking about magic, time travel methods. We talked about prophecy. What other kinds of not technological, but magical time travel stuff do you want to touch on?
There's also, everything has some sort of spell where you can go back into the past and change things. Like in Doctor Strange, where whenever he used the amulet to basically turn back time to be able to read the page that had been torn out of the book.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Yeah. That is something that the players can do, and in that is an example of seeing the past and not changing it.
That's a perfect example. In Star Wars, there's a particular race of people that have object empathy, and they make it's said in the universe they make good detectives and good cops because they can touch an object or a person, and all of a sudden they can go back in time and see how a scene played out or sense the emotions people were feeling at the time, and it's a form of time travel, right? But they can't change anything. They can just see it. So I guess it's kind of like a past cognition.
Well, that is more in the realm
Post-cognition? Anyway.
That is more in the realm of there is time travel, but everything that happened is fated to happen because the past has been set. You can't change the past. And that's one way that you avoid paradox in time travel, is to make it that everything that happens had to have happened that way, and any attempts to change it is either going to fail or is going to result in the things that did end up happening. They actually caused that trajectory to happen.
Mm-hmm. See, but as a GM, I would be more than fine with that sort of ability in my game. If a player was I want to be able to look at crime scenes and quote unquote go back in time to see what happened, I'd be that's fine, because again there's no way you can change that. And I know that kind of brings up the idea that maybe the players will be well, if I can go back in time and see stuff, there should be an ability for me to go back in time and change things. But if we're just talking about including limited time travel elements in your game, I think that something along the lines of that is easy to work with.
You're thinking of psychometry.
Yes.
Also known as psychoscopy. It's reading an object's past, touching something, being it was built in China. That's also called sticker reading.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, I don't know. That in my mind, that is something I would be comfortable with versus, hey, I'm going to cast Go Back in Time. Mm-hmm.
Could you come up with a better name for that? Just
no, Kyle.
This
go
spell
back
is
in time.
called Go Back in Time.
That's what it's called, Kyle. You ever read a 3rd edition spell book?
I don't play games like this.
I don't know. That was a bad name. But, I don't know. That's just, in my mind, too much in a game not all about time travel to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess to sort of transition to the other point I was going to have, I also think limited time travel is okay, again, as long as people aren't taking it too seriously. Like, the two examples I have is in a game I ran, I did a bit where some players went, like, very briefly back in time, but they kind of didn't know they were back in time, and it was like the whole big reveal was, oh, you're back in time. It was that whole thing of, you talked about earlier, Clayton, where they were establishing their own backstories, like, this was a sequel game, so I had known what their backstories were ahead of time, and I thought it could be, like, a kind of cool narrative thing if they went back in time and, like, the reasons things played out the way they did was because of, like, things they did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in hindsight, I don't know if I'd ever do that again, because I do kind of feel like it was a little railroady. So I don't know if I'd do that again. But, like, as a player, there was a game I was in where it was kind of a gonzo game, and, like, everybody was comfortable with the GM, like, taking some liberties, and we were all having fun. And there was a time travel element in that where, like, there was an unbeatable scenario, like, you couldn't win, and an NPC was like, your only hope, I'll send you back in time. And we're all like, okay. And, you know, we go back and we fix the problem before it becomes a problem sort of deal. And it's all this, you know, straightforward linear narrative thing. But to be cheeky, and because I thought it would be a fun storytelling thing, we actually ran into ourselves and there was no like, oh shit, we blew up. Like, you know, there was like a weird conversation where you're talking to like your slightly past self. And like my character slipped a note into the pocket of, you know, my past self to be like, hey, go do this thing, and then of course that caused a paradox, and like we ended up having a spin-off storyline about it. And so I think stuff like that's fine, you know, and like I'm comfortable doing that. So like I guess to you guys, have you had time travel that you liked? What about it did you like? Have you had travel you hated? What did you hate? Cough! Chris using time magic! Cough! Anyway.
I haven't had anything particular, I don't think, in a game.
None of my games
that I've done.
I avoid running time travel in my games.
What you were talking about, and then also talking about Bill and Ted earlier, made me think that something that would be cool would be to have a time travel game that your PCs don't know is a time travel game, and then just have them run into themselves at some point and see like what they do with that. I think that would be fun.
That could be very interesting. What about you, Clayton?
As a game master, I do not purposefully set out to include time travel. The fact that time travel had such an impact on this most recent game is just due to its presence in the mage system. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let me think. Before I make a definitive statement, I cannot think of any game that I have been in that has involved time travel. I don't open that can of worms because, I mean, it goes back to my proclivities as far as, like, I want, like, really hard sci-fi. I don't want any of this stuff that I feel is impossible. I don't run into my sci-fi games, and that's mostly where you see time travel, is in sci-fi type games. Time travel really doesn't happen much in fantasy, except travel into the future, like the Rip Van Winkle effect type stuff. I have had a couple players do stuff like that, but it's always been, well, I'm just a man out of time rather than I'm traveling to the past or the future in order to do something.
Quick side note, I think like person displaced in time is very cool and very interesting and could be a lot of fun as long as you don't get into the butterfly effect type stuff. Like, okay, you know, party, you're a bunch of 2018 people, now you're back in time. And, like, you have all the knowledge of all the events and all this stuff. You'll never go back forward in time. I'm never going to tell you, like, what changes will happen because of your trip. Just play around in the Old West. Go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
I
cool.
like that idea.
Okay, you just proved me wrong. I do actually now remember a game that it involved time travel.
I was going to prove you wrong anyway.
And I hated it. And here's why. The player characters did not travel in time. The USS Arizona traveled in time to the future, to our present.
Oh, like out of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we were informed by the storyteller when it showed up that there was nothing we could do to change what happened to it, what happened to the ship.
What do you mean, in the past? Or
No matter what we told them, that ship was going to go back into the past to 1941, December.
To get blown up.
It was going to return to December 5th, 1941, and the events that were going to happen on December 6th were going to happen, and there was nothing we could do to change it. It was going to sink.
Was it
So
one of those
what's even
things?
the point?
Yeah.
Right.
Was it one of those things where it jumped forward in time, like as the torpedo was coming towards it?
No, it, like, the day before
Like the
Pearl
day
Harbor
before.
happened, it, for some reason, got sucked forward in time.
Oh, so they would. So whatever you told the sailors, it would have had a full day's prep.
Yep.
I'm assuming that its trip back in time was like inevitable. Like it was.
Yes.
It would just happen no matter
Yes.
what. So they would have had a day's prep to like get on the
Notify
horn,
the Admiralty.
get on the horn to like Wheeler Field, get like all those fucking fighters ready to scramble. They had quite a bit of P-40s at Wheeler Field. They just weren't able to get their troops out to them. They could have moved all of the ships out. They could have brought our carriers back and launched a fucking fighter over. Yeah, no, you're right. That was bullshit.
So what was
You could have changed it.
What was the GM's reasoning for why he had it in there? He just thought it was cool, or I guess they thought it was.
The game ended before the end, so I never found out.
Oh, well,
Makes it
tragic.
even worse.
That's just so odd to me that
Or
like
better,
that set
depending how
piece
you
was
look
there
at it.
for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys get to interact with them all, or is it like, hey, this is happening? There, that ship's out there, and it's going back.
This was supposed to be a fairly lengthy campaign where we would interact with it. We never got to the point where we actually got to interact with the ship. The ship showed up in this harbor. We read the name on the side, and before the session where we actually could get to it and interact with it, this game fell apart. The game itself only lasted like 2 sessions. So we never got any sort of conclusion. But the fact that we were told we couldn't change anything is what really
Yeah.
pissed me off.
I was just gonna say to, like, Katie, what you were talking about earlier with worrying that this one particular idea would be too railroady. Like, I wonder if it's even possible to have a non-railroady time travel game. Like, can you really have a sandbox time travel game that's not just an absolute mess?
Yeah, and that's a fair point, because, like, looking back on that, even my fun, positive example I gave as a player, like, that was still very railroady. Like, we were like, we're gonna go back in time, maybe we'll create a couple paradoxes, I guess, but, like, we're still gonna beat this guy, fix the future, and, like, and it was on rails enough to the point of where, had I not done, like, I was the only person that did anything to create a paradox, and had I chosen not to, like, do that and just follow the path, essentially, like, the whole storyline would have been, you go back in time, you fix it, you come back to the present, there's nothing different. I don't know. I think that's, like...
So you were kind of acting as time cops, right?
Essentially. You could say that. This idea that the timeline would just, like, snap back into place and everything would be fixed and, like, there'd be no butterfly effect or anything like that. The only reason there was butterfly effect and a paradox was because, again, I slipped that note in there, and then, like, I ended up having to fight myself, and that was really weird but fun. Very interesting.
Future self or past self?
It was, like, kind of alternate reality
Doesn't
self,
really
because it was like it was the version of me I gave the note to,
Okay.
right? Whom in this timeline, like, still went and, like, did what we were supposed to do, like, defeated the boss, all this other stuff, but then read that note, was like, oh, like, I need to go do these dark things to make sure all this other stuff doesn't happen. And so we came back in time, and, like, everything was mostly fine. It was just that there was this, like, one tidbit that had changed, and that my character become darker. And so I came back, and we showed up at base, and everyone's like, hey, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what? Like, I'm supposed to be here, And they're like, you left, like, 2 years ago. And I'm like, uh-oh. So it was, like, a weird, like, I guessed past self, but, like, turned into alternate, like, reality self. But it was a lot of fun. I loved it. Like, it was a great fight. I love fighting. No, I had an idea too. Well, to finish my point to what you were saying, Beth, I think you're right. I think that, like, you have to be on rails to do anything with time travel. Because, like, you can't just be like, alright, everybody, there's time travel. Like, where are you going? What you doing? And they might just be like, let's go kill Archduke Ferdinand.
Yeah, I'm guessing you guys have all blocked it out of your minds, but that one shot I ran with, like, 12 people, where you had 2 Star Trek ships and could do whatever you wanted?
Oh, that's
And
right.
Oh yeah,
Decided to time travel?
Well, I did. I have tried very hard to block that out. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't there. In my defense.
Okay. Well, yeah, like that. Literally, I tried to do a fun.
Your first mistake was trying to have fun.
A fun one-shot with time travel, or there could be time travel elements.
And 12
that was
people in 2
sandbox.
separate groups.
Yep,
And it was
12
just,
people, 2 separate groups. Bad idea. Did not go
I felt
well.
bad for you.
Did not
Because
go
that
well.
would be rough.
It started out okay, and then very quickly just fell apart. But,
Well, in your mind,
That's my only
there was
experience.
extenuating circumstances there, right?
well,
So,
yeah, I
like,
mean, the groups weren't like, they weren't meshing, like one
It
group
was-
wasn't paying attention.
It was
at all.
huge.
It was huge.
12 people.
Yeah, but that is the only experience I have with time travel in a game, other than the Fate game using Mage that we just talked about a bit. That's the only other time I've ever messed with time travel as a player or a GM. And as the kids are saying these days, like, I don't fuck with that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like I fuck with that time travel, but I don't. I do not fuck with that time travel. I
Now,
hate
do
that
you
phrase.
feel like that game fell apart because of the other circumstances, or because there was time travel involved? Or do you think there was, like, both?
I think
No,
the
I don't think the time
other
travel had any
circumstances-
impact.
Yeah, I
it
don't
was-
think it did.
a group that was destined to fail?
I see.
Because we were sent into the past to achieve a specific goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of sidesteps a lot of the trouble with time travel games. Because we know there's
What
like
you
a
have to
certain
do.
right, there's a certain thing that we're trying to accomplish.
And you had a certain time frame in order to do it,
Right.
so that you didn't have enough time to go out and just go kill Hitler real quick.
So it wasn't like, you're back in time, here we are, do whatever you want. It was like, you have this objective and you have to do it in this amount of time. It wasn't like, you're back here for who knows how long. Like, gee, go find your dad, like Marty McFly style. Peeping on your mom. When they're both 18 in a tree. Then you fall, and then he falls out of the tree. Then you push him out of the way, and then your grandpa hits you with his car, and you fall asleep because you get knocked unconscious, and you wake up in a bed, and then your mom's like, "Wow, you're really attractive,"
And
you're
your
like,
tits
"This
are
is-
in your face, and
Yeah,
you're like, Ma.
this is like very uncomfortable."
Yeah.
She thinks your name's Calvin Klein. Original idea, guys. I don't know where that's coming from.
Because she would think my name would be Prince Albert.
Oh, that's the brand of your underwear. Oh, okay. I didn't know he branched out.
No.
It's because it's on your dick.
Yeah.
What was it about you never make dick jokes unless when you have to?
I'm like a Wolverine. I won't attack unless somebody messes with my babies.
I
I think you have completely fucked up that metaphor.
The last idea I had in my head, at least, was I think it would be cool in a game to play someone that is like a far-flung character. I like that idea, but I also like the idea of like someone from an alternate future. Like your future, maybe not this one. You can't go back. You don't have like any future tech or anything like that. You literally are just like there. And I think that would be super cool because you might know like a couple events, but for a lot of it, you're going to be like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like in my timeline, this happened.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be so cool to play. Because again, you have a little bit of that like, future, like, I know this will happen, but at the same time, it's also, you can be very confused as much as everyone else at the twists and the turns the story takes.
So like the character from X-Men of Bishop.
Well, yeah. And
or
like,
Cable.
I'm a weeb, I guess, but like in Fire Emblem Awakening, one of the more recent Fire Emblems, there's a character who is from a time like your timeline, but an alternate like dark future, who had like came back to try to stop it, but then realizes, oh, fuck, like this timeline wasn't going that way anyway. Oops, and is now just like hanging out with you. So I don't know. I think that could be a really like fun character type to play that involves some time travel in a way that like but you're not going to be like, fuck you guys, I'm out and like go back in time because you don't have any of that. You're just here.
Yeah.
So.
It makes me think of the Outlander series, except the problem with that is that the main character's husband is a historian, and even though she ends up going back in time and being away from him, apparently he has told her everything about history, and she has this incredibly good memory, and so she knows, like, like she knows that there's going to be an ambush behind this one mountain that they go past. You know, it's like it's like ridiculous.
Well, that's kind of the whole, like, a Yankee in King Arthur's court, where fucking the main character's just like, and for some reason I remember there's an eclipse today, you know,
Right.
and I will use this to my advantage, and I don't remember, does he have books, or is he literally just being like, I'm a man of history and science, I can, like, remember these things?
I think he just remembers things, but I'm not 100% on that.
I don't remember.
So, I don't know. But I always thought that was very silly, where he was just like, good thing I remembered that there was an eclipse. That is a trope for sure. Like, I remembered this exact historical thing happening today, and I will use it to my advantage. People will think I'm a god. Better than you.
It's a trope that I don't mind. Like, because it falls into the wheelhouse of, you know, human displaced in time. They have knowledge of things, or they have a different set of skills because they're from a different time, and they just have to survive in the future or the past. And there's no chance of traveling back, there's no chance of learning what you affect. It's just, have fun with it, you know? Like, fucking pull out your lighter and hide the plastic body to be like, I can conjure fire! You know, that's what I would do. That's how I'd get him.
Fair enough.
You wouldn't use your boomstick? Oh, great. I walked right into that shit.
This is my boomstick.
I wouldn't bring a shotgun into the past. No, I would not. I would bring a rifle. Longer range, attacking.
That wasn't where I expected you to go with that.
I know, I am learning.
Shotgun rounds are easier to make, though.
That is true. You could probably make some homemade shotgun rounds pretty easily.
Oh, because there's a whole point in Army of Darkness where he's literally just like, I have these chemistry, high school chemistry books in my trunk.
Yep.
I love that movie.
Yep.
I do too. It's one of my favorites.
One thing that I want to talk about that is not normally a part of the whole time travel conversation, but if time travel really did existed, it would absolutely be a very major complication to any sort of time travel. And that is the fact that there isn't time. There is space-time, the space-time continuum, and space and time are inextricably linked. And almost every example of time travel that I have ever seen involves a geocentric universe where the Earth is the Earth. It is in this place. It is always in this place, no matter what time of year it is. It's never like orbiting the sun and moving around the sun, to where, like, if you were to travel, like if I were to travel back in time, like literally just a few seconds without also traveling in space, I would be thousands of miles somewhere else, out in space, alone and dead.
Oops.
Fucking horrifying.
Yeah, that's the thing I had never considered, but you're right. Like, you assuming you stay in the same spot. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're lucky, you end up somewhere else on Earth, maybe. Or more likely
inside the Earth.
Or inside Earth. Or you're just in space and you're dead.
And that's just a heliocentric universe.
Well, see, but then if you end up inside the Earth, then you meet the lizard people, and then you have an entirely different adventure.
Yes.
Hollow Earth theory. It's real.
The lizard people walk the Earth.
They're called reptilians, and they've been our masters since before civilization.
You know, Lemuria wanted to fight this, Kyle. You killed it. Anyway, I don't know. No, that's very interesting, Clayton. I never really considered that in, like, a practical sense. But again, that just goes back to the only way to enjoy time travel is not to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, just take what people are giving you at face value. Like, again, Looper is just such a good example of that. Because to me, it's such an entertaining, fun film. Mm-hmm. Now, wasn't it a Ryan Howard film? Well, that's unfortunate. Or Ryan Johnson? One of the new Star Wars directors.
I don't know.
Directed it. But, still, fun film. But, like, again, don't think about it. Otherwise, it won't be fun anymore.
Don't think
That's
about
how
it,
a lot of... Yeah, exactly. That's how a lot of time travel movies are for me. Well, I like to think about movies after they're over. Like, kind of replay it in my mind, and more often than not, no matter what the sci-fi movie is, like if it involves time travel, there is something that happens that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in the context of the story. Whenever time travel is there, and it has in some way changed the things that would have happened at a different point in the movie, it all eventually falls apart, and the movie would not have been the same movie if they had just thought of this one thing that, to me, like, a few hours after watching the movie, it was like, you know what, that's a pretty glaring plot hole.
Yeah, and that's fair too. Like, I've always, like, get just, not even angry, but, like, just sigh whenever I see, like, clickbait articles are like, the top 25 things wrong with time travel and Back to the Future. I'm like, well, of course there's 25 things. There's probably more than 25 things wrong with time travel and Back to the Future. But, like, that doesn't mean I don't love Back to the Future. Like,
Right.
and it's totally fine. Like, I'll also think about, I do what you do too, I'll think about stuff after the movie's over, like Looper. I've also came to the conclusion where I was like, wow, well, none of that made any, like, goddamn sense. Like, there was so much wrong with it. Even Back to the Future, I was pretty like, well, why didn't, like, Marty do this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I just,
Yeah.
I just feel like you just have to accept that for anything, you know? Like, you just gotta be like, well, some shit's gonna go down.
I've definitely
go.
had to learn how to both tear movies apart and still really enjoy them because of Clayton. I used to just really enjoy everything I saw, and then I started dating Clayton, and he would, like, rip apart everything, and for a long time I was, like, angry about it. I was like, what the heck, you know? But then I finally found out by, like, talking to him, imagine, that,
Conversation in a relationship, resolving conflict, that's impossible.
that he was like, no, I still enjoy these, but I also enjoy taking them apart. And now I'm like that too.
I think that's a conversation you need to have with Lenina, because she gets so mad when during a movie we're, like, ripping it apart, and then she's like, I'll just turn it off if you aren't having fun. And then Kyle and I sitting there, because I'm like the third wheel in their relationship constantly, viewers. That's what this is all about. I'm like the unwanted house guest that never leaves, but this is my house. And so I'm there, and you're there, and Nina's there, and you and I are just like, no, we're enjoying ourselves. Like, we are enjoying the movie. We just really want to rip it apart at the same time.
Do a little
Well, that's
riffing.
kind of the compromise that Clayton and I had to make, because I don't like it to be ripped apart as I'm watching it. I want to enjoy it as I'm watching it, and then rip it apart afterwards.
I'll let Lenina defend that one by herself. Because, not by herself, but, like, answer to that.
Yeah, it's 2v1. We got her, bro.
No, that's not what I meant.
Bros
Fuck you.
for life, ha ha ha, you and me. Forget your girlfriend and our fellow podcaster. It's the Us Show. Do me, buddy.
Anyway. Moving along.
So we're just a little over an hour. Do we want to go ahead and move on to geek things, or is there any other points that people want to talk about?
I've said my fill.
I think we hit it.
KD, do you want to start talking about geek stuff?
Sure. So, a friend recently brought to my attention this fine gentleman on YouTube. His name is Matthew Colville. Not sure if anyone at the table is familiar with him. But he worked in the industry for a long time. He was like, I don't think he worked for TSR, but he definitely like did some stuff for Wizards of the Coast and some like writing. But the guy loves D&D, and he has it's up to like 60 some parts of a like how to run a game thing, advice for GMs, and some of it's like examples from his own games, and a lot of his GMing philosophy is very in line with mine, you know, very like player centric, and players are right. Like GMs, when players are having fun, the game is fun. You're having a good time, that sort of deal. But he also has just a lot of things about like creating universes and material and like resources for if you're going to run a game for the first time. It's just a very accessible thing. Each video is like 10-ish minutes long, maybe a little bit longer sometimes. And it's a good resource. So, like, if you kind of like what we do on this podcast, check him out. That's Matthew Colville, Matthew Colville.
Don't like him better, though. You have to like us more than him.
Like who you want.
Yeah, I got something. Two of my friends in Columbus, they are in a band called All Powerful Sun Goddess. Really cool, like, kind of folky. Some of their songs are kind of dark. A lot of them are, like, all about, you know, like, being empowered and awesome. And some of them are kind of funny, too. They've got some funny songs. And you should check them out. All Powerful Sun Goddess on Instagram. They don't have a Bandcamp yet. They do have a Facebook page, I think. Anyway, I just filmed one of their concerts. It was an album release show, album Summer Jams. You can check that out. Probably. Maybe. Somewhere. They need a Bandcamp. Real bad. But All Powerful Sun Goddess on Instagram. They're cool. Check them out.
Do you have anything?
I'm not even a geek, like, at all. I'm not even sure.
Oh,
why
that's
I'm here.
tragic. Yeah.
Okay.
I just show up because I'm married to you,
Yeah,
and that's
you're-
like it was in my wedding vows.
You're the girlfriend.
Yep.
To have and to podcast.
Till podcasts do us part.
Till
In that case, I
cancellation
wouldn't
do
be
us
here.
part. Man, how's it feel to know that we don't have a network that can cancel us? We could do this until we fucking die.
So my one geek thing, I discovered a podcast called Dead Ideas, which explores ideas and practices once believed to be true but are no longer. Their most recent series that they're doing, they're talking about the Viking Berserker and basically the origins of it and breaking down like going through some of the Norse sagas and giving examples of what the Berserkers were and stuff like that, and it's really cool.
He's not dead. It's very alive.
There are no practicing Berserkers in the world.
I mean, have you
right
met
now.
Kyle Perkins? I have. That man is a machine.
Hey, listen, I'm real sorry about this, but I'm in berserk mode right now. You can't stop me. I'm
What
coming.
if I say my
coming
love
from-
for you is like a truck?
What do you say we stop this bullshit and start rolling some dice?
Woo!
Nice.
That was a burrito that
I
just hit the
hate
table.
D&D.
This has been a production of Alien Familiar Media. You can find past episodes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. This production is protected under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution, no derivatives license. Music for this episode is Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale and can be found at freemusicarchive.org.